everybody. Thank you so much for coming to my talk. Today I will talk to you about the design of emerging technology. I work for a company called Blipper, and Blipper is an augmented reality company. I will share my experience in designing the products in the AR space, how we gather inspiration, and how do we design in this domain that everyone is trying to figure out. From exploring new modes of communication, learning behavioral cues, and figuring out what is the right question to ask. I will discuss about what kind of things work and what doesn't work during our experimentation in this domain. Okay. So whenever I mention about AR, this is usually the first image people have in mind. Either this or the Minority Report where Tom Cruise was doing something like this. It's kind of hard to talk to people what I really do because I don't really do cool stuff like that, even though this is what is in the back of our head. But AR has been around for 65 years, and that it has been changing from sci-fi to daily lives. How have we been living with this technology for this long and not knowing it, only to heard about it in the last 8 or 10 years or so? So going back, in the very first AR machine, or virtual reality machine, actually came from this guy called Morton Halick. And in 1957, he designed this experience theater, which is a machine where you can sit in there and experience a short film with sensory input. So you can feel the wind, you can smell the aroma, you can hear the sound, and you can even feel how that movie is moving. So this is the very first AR augmented reality experience that someone actually created and actually patented. Moving on, this is the first augmented reality headset that you see by Ivan Sutherland at Harvard University. So back then, this device was so heavy that they had to use a suspender, like a metal suspender, that holds up the whole weight. And really, we had came a long way. Throughout the 80s and 90s, Steve Mann has been developing technology to make this more friendly for daily use. He was experimenting on how can we wear this on a daily usage base, how can we document our life, what kind of things can we see with this technology. So the maturity of augmented reality really comes in just a couple years ago when Google launched their Google Glass. And this is when people start thinking, hey, this is actually something I can use too. It's not like a weird device that I need to carry around with me that makes me look like a cyborg. And last year, CES, they actually came out with these glasses that looks just like a normal glass. And that is now becoming more socially acceptable. And this is where AR has become matured, and the software now can catch up with this. With this type of hardware also comes with this new design interaction mode, where we're going towards a screenless future. And it will change the interaction on how we interact with things. We no longer will be using keyboard or mouse. We'll be using our hand gesture or even voice, anything that is more natural than having a screen or keyboard input in front of you. The pace of AR really speeds up quickly just the last few years due to the prevalence of the smartphones. When you actually think about it, where it actually peaks up, it's around 2008 when smartphone comes about, when everyone starts to have a smartphone in their pocket. People start experimenting with what you can see through these lenses, what kind of digital information you can put. And for an emerging technology to become mainstream, it never happens overnight. So this is the Gartner hype cycle that I always like to talk about, to give you guys a little background. For all the emerging technology, it goes through this cycle, and this is a theory. You first have this technology trigger, which means someone truly invented a technology, something that is a start, that starts off something really exciting and interesting. And then no one really hears about it because it's so new. And then you start hearing marketing people talking about it, the press are talking about it, or the technology start catching on, and then you get this blowout of peak of inflated expectations. Wow, now AR can do this and can do that. With all the sci-fi movies, this has become extremely exciting. But when the technology comes out to the market, people are disappointed. This is not really what I see in the movie. What's going on? And then you go down to the path of disillusionment. This is when people get disappointed, the technology is not really what they promised to be. And then slowly, when people start forgetting about these technology, they slowly be coming back to slope of enlightenment. This is when you have the version 2 of the technology comes up that truly addresses a user case that is no longer about technology anymore, that is addressing a human need. And AR currently is really in the slope of enlightenment. We have gone through the hype, we have gone through what everyone thinks AR can do, and now people are getting more realistic. Hey, it's not cheap enough, I don't want to carry this headset with me, I want to have the glasses. But wait a second, I actually can use my phone to do it. And that has become more accessible. And maybe that is something truly indeed interesting. And the plateau of productivity is where the technology becomes mainstream. So when the technology goes through these cycles, sometimes they go through several waves. It doesn't naturally just go through one wave. Sometimes it's go down and then they go up again, all the hype is coming up, and then they go down again and then they go up before they become mainstream. And sometimes technology may never ever become mainstream products because they're just not feasible or the market is not ready yet. So then the prevalence of smartphones in 2008, like I said, give rise to augmented reality. And the rise of augmented reality is actually killing smartphones and it will eventually replace a smartphone, which I think is kind of interesting when you think about it. And that is why so many tech companies are racing to invest in AR and VR domain. All these companies, Apple, Google, Samsung, when you think about all these companies, they're heavily invested in a future that may not need a screen because right now they're so heavily into the screen and into those type of interaction. Computer, phones, what if all these things are gone? What is their business model going to be based on? And for me, for AR to reach that plateau to become mainstream, the breakthrough is the moments where people think AR is no longer gimmicky and wow, like magic, but it's something that they can use daily, something that will be very practical and very utilitarian. And this is what Blipper is striving to do as well. So with that, I want to also talk about there are many challenges that designers face when we're designing for this type of technology. And there are 6 type of design challenges. I'm going to start with the number 1. The number 1 design challenge we have is that we always have to retrofit design into the technology. Because what happens is that companies are usually so technology driven. We have this technology right now, and we need to launch this. So designers will be trying to scramble and trying to get this implemented and launch into the marketplace, and also trying to think of a use case to fit into this technology. And sometimes it doesn't quite work, and I'll tell you why. Let me tell you a little bit about the company that I work for. Blipper started in business on making advertisements for big brands. So this is an example of we call it blipping. We blip the cereal box, the logo, and then the logo will come out alive as a 3D game, and you can play games on it. And it's a marketing campaign where they think, hey, the kids are really bored when they eat cereals, they should have some games to play. We want to gain brand awareness. And that becomes very successful, and it definitely created a lot of wow. So the mechanism is also really simple. You scan, the technology recognizes this marker, and then it will play out that AR experience that we designed. And this whole thing, the marker, we call it a blip. So we are actually blipping a blip. So again, the action of having the camera pointing to this marker can also be used in concert tickets, where you can see a 3D map. This is a rugby event, I think, in London, I think last year. We also did it recently for the banknotes in Britain as well. So you can see the Queen, and you can learn about her history. You can take a selfie with her. So a lot of fun stuff about that. So from branding to advertisement, Blipper has been very successful making profits for big brands. And we were thinking, what if it goes beyond the brands and the logos? What else can people use for this? Maybe we can make the whole world blippable. Is that even possible? So to achieve that, we invest in image recognition technology and visual search. Notice that there isn't really a need here. The direction is really still driven by the technology. We want to have visual search and image recognition in. So let's do it. Let's see how that works. Now, when each object ties into a metadata, it will become very, very busy in the UI. If everything is blippable, or if everything gives you information, you can see something like what this movie actually predicts. This is hyperreality, a video that was depicted by an artist, and I thought it was really interesting how the world becomes so overwhelming with the visuals through the glass. He didn't really say it's a glass, but it's augmented reality. When you see a bus, it shows you bus schedule. Whenever you walk, advertisement is talking to you. It becomes apparent that design will need to make information digestible. We need to start thinking about information hierarchy, what kind of content comes first, how to display them, and how do we make it fun and not so overwhelming. This is how we currently implement the computer vision. Actually, it's the same thing as image recognition. So when you recognize an object, the computer has to think, is this a dog? What is the breed? It try to gives you all the information out. So it will actually start spitting out keywords to you. And the way we're designing it is there a more forgiving interface that if we give you a negative keyword, which means it's not really a dog, it gives you humor, that you will be okay with it, a more forgiving UI. And would you be okay if the object is not being identified properly? And you see what I'm doing here. I'm trying to design a strong use case for people to use image recognition technology and visual search here. And I'm retrofitting design into the technology. There isn't really a use case to start with. We're making assumptions about human behavior. In this case, we're trying to justify the use of technology. So we're saying, okay, what if we start from information, giving you all this information to a narrative? Maybe people would like to do that because they want to do exploration, they want to do their discovery. This is a human nature. So we start to create stories and see if this is a real use case. And then this is actually a video that we created, and it's actually the thing that what you can do. You point to a Starbucks cup, you recognize that this is a Starbucks, you start giving you keywords, and then when you click on it, you will start seeing all these entities, related entities about Starbucks, including, I want to click on Seattle now. Looks like there's Seattle here. I don't understand what Seattle has to do with Starbucks. So we assume people are driven by curiosity, so that all the related entities you can explore. So from Starbucks to Seattle, it is a journey of discovery. And we did launch this version, and great. So as we launch it, we actually realized that people aren't really that curious. It is kind of an endless exploration to them, and we realized that, well, if the data is not showing us that, maybe people don't have much patience, and that probably means that they're very task-driven. And then we start getting questions of, from the user, well, why is this? What is this app doing? I think it's cool, but I don't understand, and we're getting a lot of these questions. So now we're back to the drawing board. What content to show and how to display content becomes the key. If people have no patience to see things and they can only have patience to see very limited content, what kind of content gets serviced up? And for example, if we look at the chair, if we point the camera to the chair, we don't quite know what the chair is, we don't quite know what the user is thinking. Do they want to buy the chair? Do we give them direction to buy the chair? Do we give them the price? Do we give them history of the chair? Do we give them what people tweet about the chair? There's so much information layer about a single object. So we designed another use case that better fits into the technology, which is, what if this object can just tell you a joke? Forget about the information. Would that be something people want to do? And then we start it all over again. We iterate by making another assumptions. The second design challenge I want to talk about is that we're constantly operating in an ambiguous new domain. And when you are in an ambiguous domain, there is very limited research you can find because there is not much competitors around you. Everyone is trying to do the same thing, and everyone is struggling with the same issue. And the key here is the speed to market. All your potential competitors are really exploring the domain, and the one who gets out to the market first can learn from the market right away and iterate on the products. So there's really no time for perfection. I would say for designers and engineers and everyone who works in the team in this domain, we need to really just stick with the timeline. This is what we call the blip builder. I know everything's about blip here. This is an AR content creation tool that we first launched. We thought that just giving user the experience to experience the content is not enough. We may want to give them a creation tool to create this experience. And we had this concept, and we thought, well, this thing is going to be like Photoshop plus 3D plus animation timeline plus all these widgets you can make. That's why the UI doesn't look so pretty here. This is our first version, and this is actually what it looks like 2 years ago. Last year, we did everything from scratch. We redesigned all the workflows from publishing to testing to content layout, and we did all the backend code. How we handled animations, for example, and how do we hide certain panels. And that becomes more clean, but still we don't have time to make it perfect yet. And just a couple days ago, we launched a new version. And this is something that the whole team is starting to get really proud of. We did a UI refresh, and this product now is slowly stabilized into improvement sprints. So at this point, we feel like, okay, now we can take a deep breath. We can all like march slowly towards, making things look more interesting instead of making this out and trying to get out to the market really fast, because it is already out in the market. We can now start collecting feedbacks. So this is the AR content creation tool. And this is a free tool, by the way. If you guys are interested, feel free to download and play with it. The third challenge that I want to talk about is early adopters. I hear this word so much with everyone who are designing in this domain. We're designing for early adopters. And every time when I ask people, who are the target audience, what are our users, we always get this answer. And the early adopter is really the aspirational demographics who are sorted out by the marketers across the land. So getting traction among this consumer and all your go-to-market strategy will take care of itself. But with all the unknowns, we're also in danger of creating fictitious user groups. Somehow, company tends to perceive early adopters as someone who are young, 18 to 24-year-old, tech-savvy, hyper-connected. Early adopters are teenagers. They're going to be the one who are going to be using our emerging technology products. But early adopters are not usually teenagers and young people. They don't have to be uber social and hyper-connected. They can just be a normal person like me and you. So this is an example that I always like to use as well. Early adopters can be someone that are very experienced in their field, but are frustrated with the tools that are currently available to them. And this is an example of how augmented reality can become very, very practical to solve a very specific problem. I'm trying to back up my car, and you just need to guide me and show me where I'm at. Another example for a daily use AR is Waze, all kinds of maps program. That is really just essentially adding a digital or virtual layer of information to enhance our perception on reality. So when you think about the users, you can actually segment them in many ways. Other than age groups, you can also think about their motivation, their behavior, and their values. What other shared characteristics do they have? And what kind of people will attract your product? They don't have to be just within a certain age range. So to think that your target audience as young teenagers is really completely fine. We have to start somewhere. But remember, this is a large assumption you're making and betting. The next crucial step is to do the right research to validate your assumptions. Otherwise, the product will pretty much look like this. So number 4, this is going to be contradicting to what a lot of people were thinking. You notice that people are really always eager to contribute ideas, and I can assure you there will be no shortage of ideas in this domain. Because we're trained to be solution finders, and our performance is usually defined as creating and implementing solutions to find the best problem to tackle, we become so efficient in solving problems, even if they're the wrong one to solve. So it's really not about the ideas. Things can be so exciting when you, it's not working. Oh, there you go. It can be so easy to come up with a million cool ideas. Oh, we can do this, and we can have a cool feature that does that. But what you end up with is a million pieces of scattered ideas that are purely subjective. So I'd like to say, it is not always about thinking out of the box. You will always find that good ideas recycles, so it doesn't have to be so original or like great idea. Sometimes idea doesn't work just because the technology is not mature yet or the market is not ready yet. It's not so much about thinking out of the box. To me, it's really about finding the right box. As a designer, we can help to find the right box. Are you asking the right question? Can we help you to frame the right questions? Can we see this immediate thing can we see beyond these immediate problems that we're solving and try to understand the bigger schema of things? So we have to practice the art of asking better questions, such as asking what ifs a lot, why are we doing certain things, how can we do better at certain things, how might we do this and that. And one of the case study for Bank of America is that they have this Keep the Change program that rounds up consumers' debit card purchase to the next highest dollar and sweeping the differences into a personal saving account. And that question that they ask might be like, how can consumers save money without thinking, planning, or buying anything? That is just a question to start with, and they came up with this solution. I see designers as facilitators and catalysts. By spending time to ask the right question, we set the platform right, we set the context right, and we empower people by giving us better ideas. Number 5, designers in this domain always have to design the design process. In a startup environment, everything goes very quickly. And a product or big feature can be decided based on someone's intuition. Now, it could be someone very high up, a founder, a CEO, or a CTO, and that we don't have too much time to question it. And we'll have to immediately launch into an execution mode. Within a very tight timeline, everyone is marching towards a shipping date. And I don't want to forget about having this vision, this product vision. And in my definition, it's called the North Star. Once you have the North Star, you can then draw the roadmap to where we are right now and launch the product. And when you launch the product, every time it's just like a little line that goes within a long spectrum. Sometimes the line may not be correct. It doesn't go towards here, but it goes towards here. But it's okay because we're still having a North Star. We have a vision that we can somewhat pivot towards. And we know this North Star can somewhat change, but this vision is always there, and we can always have research and design to validate where is this North Star, are we doing the right thing. And I want to talk about this diagram just a little bit. As you can see, there are 2 different design processes going on in the product development cycle. When feature development is happening already, we are launching a product. We are having back-end engineer working on the codes. Designers, do not forget to do your design research. Do not forget to find out what is the strong use case. Why are we doing this for people? Why do you think people are using it? And asking the right questions, because all these insights feeds into the feature development team, and that will help you to make better assumptions, better iteration, and such. The last point I want to make here: designer needs to have ethics and social responsibilities in this domain. It's really important. Blipper is about to launch face profiles which is controversial, as you can imagine. We always ask question of, why are we doing this? Isn't it privacy? You know, isn't it bad about privacy? Is it acceptable that people are doing this to your face and see who you are? And we ask a lot of questions internally. And one of the strong use case that we found is that celebrities could be a good way to launch this product. When you flip a magazine, when you look at celebrities, I probably want to find more information about that person. So let's just forget about privacy for now. This will be a good use case. Let's just do that really well. This is what we have, and if you have seen it, it's in the press already. How can we make it fun? How can we make it less creepy? Again, when is it okay to share? When is it not okay to share? And who do you share this with? Do everyone get to see your profiles? Are you interested to create your profiles? What is face recognition has to do with privacy? And that sort of thing. As designer, we always have to ask those questions. Designers have the responsibility to foresee and address the implication of technology. Every time when you put a new product for a new technology out there, you need to understand its potential and how it's going to have a ripple effect on everything. It is not just a product you put out there. It will affect people's interaction. It will affect society. It will affect humanity. That's how I think about it. Let me give you an example. It is really important to have inclusive design in your practice, in our practice. Microsoft launched this persona spectrum, and they designed a toolkit to address all these different use cases. Situational disability, permanent or temporary disability. I think it's fascinating. By addressing someone who cannot see, by making your product more accessible, you're actually helping a distracted driver, people that are temporarily blind. Or for people who cannot hear, you're actually also addressing someone who are in a very loud environment. And if you think about it, when we talk about augmented reality, we always talk about visual. It's always about visual effects. It's always about something really cool that shows up in front of you. What if we include people who cannot see into the discussion? What kind of answer would they give you? And so in our most recent research studies, we invited some blind young adults to join the discussion. And by applying this to augmented reality, it doesn't have to be limited to being visual, because the current status quo is augmented reality is just something you see. So when we ask them, what would you like to see when you have this magical device that would tell you stuff and does all this image recognition, see stuff in front of you? These kids got so excited, and they even were telling us how they use their social media accounts. All these kids also take pictures. They have a very hyper-social behavior, as I can see. That is something that we don't see in the sighted user group. And that highlights a desire that we don't usually address or consider. And these insights actually brings new design idea that we can soon incorporate into our product. The last point I want to talk about here is that the main role for a designer, regardless of your domain, emerging technology or not, is to humanize the technology and to bring people together. Thank you.
I was wondering why or how you feel about making a smaller target market, that you're trying to understand. It seems like you're trying to design for the whole world. And why not pick out one thing, like people who live in nursing homes, and just go for that and find out what their needs are and build a product there. And your race would be to be the supplier to change nursing homes, let's say.
Yeah, absolutely. Usually the user group is determined by the marketing in our company. And as designers, we do give those voice. Why don't we focus more on certain groups of people? But then the marketing do have their own reason, and they think certain groups are more attractive. And we do try our best to design for those people. But instead of just designing for what people are asking for, we also challenging them a lot. Yeah, hope that answered your question.
So I'm a big fan of AR, but every app that I've seen, most of them like for advertising purpose or whatever other gimmicky reason, it's always fun at the first time, but then the thing drops off. And
Yeah.
then I never want to do it again because it takes so much time and I just want to get to the task.
Right.
What's your research around, like what have you noticed, like what can you do
Yeah.
to overcome that?
That's a very
problem?
common problem, and I can totally see your point. And that's exactly why I said in the previous slide that in order for AR to become mainstream, it needs to be something that people would want to come back and use again and again because they have a practical utility purpose. And not just, oh, this is really cool, something just fly out in front of me, and okay, that's it. So definitely, we notice that a lot. Thank you.